I want to cover leadership and teamwork. And first, I want to start off by giving you a definition of teamwork and then synonyms for teamwork and then some related words for teamwork. And if you go to m-w.com and then you type in teamwork, then you will get this same list that I'm giving you here. And so, starting off with definition of teamwork, the work done by people who work together as a team to do something. So, definition of teamwork, one is the work done by people who work together as a team to do something. Okay. Second, work done by several associates with each doing a part, but all subordinating personal prominence to the efficiency of the whole. So, work done by several associates with each doing a part, but all subordinating personal prominence to the efficiency of the whole. So we've got two or more individuals coming together for a common goal. We've got two or more individuals coming together and doing their part. Each individual has a role, has a responsibility, and each doing their part. But not for their personal gain. When it says subordinating personal prominence, not for themselves, but for the greater good of the team. And that's something that you'll have to learn if you're not already practicing this. This is your time to start practicing. How can you really function as a member of a team? And it's not as simple as saying, well, I was on a group, we did some work, and we finished the work. It's more than that. There's different dynamics that come into play. It's the different personalities, understanding the different personalities, understanding the different objectives, the biases, the assumptions that each individual brings to the table. Learning how to effectively communicate with all members of the team so that the team can achieve its objective or objectives if there's one or more. So it's more than just showing up. It's more than just saying I was on a team. It's more than just saying I'm a good team player. You've got to understand the different dynamics that come into play. Some of the synonyms for teamwork: collaboration, cooperation, and coordination. So working together, communicating, making sure all the pieces are coming together, cooperating with one another on the team. Because there are personality conflicts that come into play a lot of times. There are personal objectives that override the team objective. Coordination. How do you effectively communicate to achieve the goal of the team, the objective of the team? Related words for teamwork: collegiality, fellowship, partnership, community, reciprocity, synergy. Does the team have the effective synergy to, or is the team or the team members constantly butting heads? Does it just ebb and flow as the team works on achieving its objectives and gets from point A to point B, and when the team gets to point B, they go, man, that was a great process. Cooperative, oneness, solidarity, togetherness, and unity. So remember these terms and where they fit in under either the definition for teamwork, synonyms for teamwork, and related words for teamwork, and in some respect their application to the team environment. When you watch the Abilene Paradox, there are a couple of elements to take away, some key takeaways here. And one is Jerry Harvey says that the basic problem of organizations is the inability to cope with the fact that we agree with one another. So the basic problem of organizations is the inability to cope with the fact that we agree with one another, and not the inability to cope with the fact that we are in conflict. So let me read that to you again. The basic problem of organizations is the inability to cope with the fact that we are in agreement with one another, and not the inability to cope with the fact that we are in conflict. So what that means is we spend more time managing conflict than we do managing agreement in a team setting, in an organization setting, and so forth. When we should be spending time on managing agreement. How do we effectively communicate? How do we effectively focus on those elements that I mentioned under the definition of teamwork, synonyms for teamwork, and related words for teamwork? How do we spend more time focusing on those? Focusing on collegiality, fellowship, partnership, community, reciprocity, synergy, cooperativeness, oneness, solidarity, togetherness, unity, collaboration, cooperation, coordination. More than one individual coming together, each doing their part, but subordinating their personal interest to the efficiency of the whole. How do we spend more time focusing on that to create an effective team environment, to create an effective organization environment, rather than managing conflict? So Jerry Harvey says we spend more time managing conflict than we do managing agreement. And that individuals and organizations take actions that are contrary to their own objectives and defeat the very purpose that they're trying to achieve, the very purpose that they stand for. All because of managing conflict, the focus on managing conflict. So wrong as opposed to right decisions are made because no one speaks up. Wrong as opposed to right decisions are made because no one speaks up. And that's easier said than done. Because you can't just get in somebody's face and say, hey, what I think you're doing is wrong. Because then the defenses go up and that's the end of it. And that has a negative dynamic on that team. It has a negative dynamic on the organization. It has a negative effect on achieving the objectives for that team or for that organization. So wrong as opposed to right decisions are made because no one speaks up. The leaders do not allow the space for this to occur. The leaders do not allow the space for the team members, for the individuals within an organization to have the space for this to occur. In other words, for the space for them to speak up. But again, there's more an art to that than just speaking up and saying what's on your mind. But when leadership within an organization does not allow for this space, for others to have a voice, then we end up on a bus trip to Abilene. So take a look at the Abilene Paradox video. As you go through that, pull out some key takeaways. Have there been some instances where you've been in a conversation like that? And how was that? What was the level of communication? What was communicated? How was it communicated? And did you end up on a bus trip to Abilene? One of the most effective teams that I was on was in an organization, was an academic context, academic setting, and we had the most fun, and we achieved our objectives. The other teams in the class, they accomplished the objective, but they didn't have fun. And I using the word fun is relative. It's less about having fun, but was it a good experience? Did you walk away from it going, man, that was all right. We had a good time. It wasn't burdensome. It wasn't, we gotta do this assignment. We gotta meet. Okay, now we're going to spend most of our time trying to figure out when we can meet. Managing conflict. As opposed to showing up, working on a time that works for everybody, getting the schedule in place, so effective communication, letting everybody have a voice in terms of what that looks like, and everybody being invited to the table to put their voice on the table. I often hear, well, we've tried to contact so-and-so and haven't been able to get a hold of them. That team member who's inactive, that team member who's not participating, needs to come to the table, needs to participate. And that's why I generally have my attitude is if that member's not going to participate, they're out. Because if they're not willing to take the time just to work on coming up with a schedule of when to get together, then what's what's the probability of them actually participating with the team effectively at that point? You know, especially after weeks of trying to contact an absentee team member. So the key there is, how do you effectively allow everybody to have a voice, just in terms of something as simple as, when are we going to meet? And then when we did meet, we didn't jump into an agenda. Yeah, there's a lot of teams that do that. Okay, we've got our agenda. Let's go number 1. Number 2. No, we can't talk about number 7. We're still on number 2. We'll get to number 9 later, right? That's not allowing for that synergy for the team to communicate effectively. And if you haven't been on one of those teams where you got somebody who follows the agenda, it's just by the book. Number 1. We're going to start with number 1. We're going to go to number 2. We're going to go to number 3, and so on. And you're sitting there just bored out of your mind. You're like, come on. When is, that's because one person is in charge of the meeting. One person has this perceived control over, here's what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and does not have buy-in for all the team members. And so as a effect, you've already got a team that is dysfunctional. Or maybe not dysfunctional, but not as functional as it should be. And then when you meet, instead of sitting down and going down that agenda, you develop the community. Remember, going back to one of those terms? Under related words for teamwork: collegiality, fellowship, partnership, community, reciprocity, synergy, cooperativeness, oneness, solidarity, togetherness, unity. Coming together as a team, building a community. Even though it's something as simple as working on one assignment, or it's working on one project in an organizational context. Coming together and building that community. So we'd spend the first 30 minutes, 45 minutes talking about life, talking about everything you're not supposed to, religion, politics, and prenups. And we had fun with it. And then we'd say, okay, you know what, is it time for us to start talking about the assignment? And then we would go to the assignment. We would ask who wants to take on which responsibility, as opposed to assigning responsibilities. Team members would take on those responsibilities. We would go set a soft deadline for the final work product. We would have a conference call. We would get to that time, and we would end up on a bus trip to Abilene. Because it was, all right, is everybody good? Yes, 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 yes. And we would get down the line, and inevitably one person would go, well, I could use a few more days. And then everybody else jumps in and says, yeah, we could use a few more days as well. All right, let's reset the deadline. Now, can we set a hard deadline for, 4 days out? Yes, we're all good. Definitely, everybody says definitely, we'll be ready by then. And then we were. But it's allowing that flexibility. It's allowing that focusing on managing agreement versus managing conflict. The other thing we would do is we would have a conversation, and we would throw out the term, because we had all read the Abilene Paradox, we would throw out the term, no bus trips to Abilene here, which meant that you are free to speak up. You're free to have a voice, and we're not going to shoot you down. And it worked. So individuals would go, well, this is what I think we should do. So we would end up on one path. We would end up on a bus trip to Abilene. And if you didn't allow team members to have a voice to speak up, where the whole team has that understanding, where team members can speak up and they're not going to get shot down. I've been on a team like that where I was shot down, and I said, that's it, I'm done. I'm out. Good luck, y'all. Because it was not a cohesive team. It was not a team that was focused on coming together as one. It was individuals coming together, and each had their own agenda. And so just by the team having read the Abilene Paradox and having that understanding, and then the team agreeing to have that context of being able to say no bus trips to Abilene, which means that the team members have a voice, it was effective. I think it would be worthwhile for organizations to read the Abilene Paradox. If not the whole book, just the second chapter, which is on managing agreement versus managing conflict. So keep that in mind in terms of teamwork. And remember rule number 6. Take a look at Ben Zander's rule number 6 and keep that in mind. I'll let you look at that. That's something for you to remember personally as an individual within an organization, and as an individual on a team, and setting a context for the team. So take a look at rule number 6.